All right, I'm back. The Russians, part 4, the Fourth Land Empire. Let's review a little bit, shall we? What was the first empire we learned about? I forgot. Manchus. I don't know the order. I'll make this up as I go. The Manchus are also called the Qing. The Mughals in India. And we just got through with part 3, the Ottomans. And now we're doing the Russians. But remember, all of these are going through time at the same time. Going through chronology at the same time. All right, the Russians. When the Ottomans, also known as the Turks, conquered Constantinople, which was the center of what kind of Christianity was in Constantinople? What was it called under Byzantine? Orthodox. Orthodox Christianity moved to Moscow. Russia was also Christian Orthodox. The Christian Orthodoxy spread from the Byzantine Empire into Russia. Because if you look at the map, geographically, it's right flipping there. So it spreads in. So all of Russia, well, a lot of Russia is Christian Orthodox. And their Pope, the Russian Pope, was the Byzantine Pope. Well, now, who controls the Byzantine Empire? Is it the Ottomans? Yeah, I think it is. The Ottomans, well, they're not Christian, they're Muslim. That's right, they're Islam. They don't have a Pope. They're not going to have that. So once Constantinople fell, then the center of Orthodoxy moved to Moscow, which of course is in Tahoka, or Russia. All right, number 2. At about the same time, the Russian leaders were kicking out the Mongols. Again, we're going back in time. Right, the fall of the Mongols. But we're going back to there. The Russians have driven the Mongols out. Ivan III of Moscow refused to pay tribute to the Mongols. Yes?
Hey, I just want to make sure, are you taking breaks between those videos?
Yes. None more than 14 minutes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Get back to Ivan.
Okay, Ivan. That was my daughter. She's checking. We have done this so many times. One time I recorded the whole thing, and it was too long to work. And I'm thinking, wow, that was some good. I had some great jokes in there too. So then I recorded it another time, and it would on a different thing, and it wouldn't transfer. And so she just came out to remind me, make sure you split it up into sections. And I go, hey, this lesson has 4 sections. This is perfect. And it's about 14 minutes a section. Life is good. All right, look at number 2. At about this time, Russian leaders were kicking the Mongols out, and in 1480, Ivan III of Moscow refused to pay tribute to the Mongols. Remember, tribute is anything of value. Could be money, could be crops, could be anything. And declared Russia free of Mongol rule. That's the official kick the Mongols out of Russia. Remember the Mongol group in Russia was called the Golden Horde. That was their little khanate, the one that was in Russia. All right, number 3, Ivan IV established absolute rule in Russia, uniting and expanding eastward. Expanding eastward. Peasants should be recruited. I don't know. Peasants were recruited. You remember, I always put down encouraged, and in quotation marks in my little summaries I've been doing for you. Peasants were encouraged. They were recruited and offered freedom from their feudal lords if they agreed to settle in new lands in the east. In the east. This is basically saying, hey, all of you peasants, remember the feudal system. When the Roman Empire fell, the feudal system took over. You had all these little manors and lords all over the place. It wasn't unified at all. You never had a big, huge king until Charlemagne came along. You had all these little empires everywhere. Russia's the same way. When Ivan comes along, he brings everybody together and says, hey, you don't have to pay rent to a feudal lord anymore if you move east. The kicker was they had to conquer the land themselves. It was wild, wild land. And the peasant soldier was invented. I love this name. This ought to be a university's mascot somewhere. The Cossack. Cossack. C-O-S-S-A-C-K. Cossack. Doesn't that just sound bad? Cossack. Oh no, here come the Cossacks. Ivan IV became known as Ivan the Terrible. Ivan the Terrible. Everybody has to have a nickname. Ivan the Terrible. And by 1560s, he would regularly execute anyone he thought might be a threat to his power. And tell you how bad Ivan the Terrible was, this included his own son. He had his own son executed. You got to be a pretty bad dude to execute your own son. Ivan IV took on the title of Tsar. And also sometimes Tsar is spelled T-S-A-R. AP always spells it C-Z-A-R, so that's what I went with. Now the word Tsar is Russian for Caesar. Sounds kind of the same. Caesar. Caesar spelled C-A-E-S-A-R. But after the death, there was no one to take the throne. After Ivan IV died, there wasn't a strong successor. So what happened? The same thing happens every other time. Every other time someone dies that doesn't leave a strong leadership, it splits all into little bitty city-states again. Just like it began with. You know, it's a pattern, the same thing. You know, I don't know too much about history. I know like 4 or 5 things because they all keep repeating themselves over and over. That's all you have to know is 4 or 5 things. Russia fell back into having a gazillion feudal lords. F-E-U-D-A-L. Feudal lords. This was called the Time of Troubles. The Time of Troubles. After Ivan the Terrible died, Russia went back to feudalism. Basically, the Dark Ages. All right, because one feudal lord thought he should rule, and then another feudal lord killed him, and then he was killed, and it just went on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And you keep having that. You keep having leaders getting killed. You can't get something together. You can't unite everybody if the leader's getting killed. Finally, in 1613, the feudal lords elected Mikhail Romanov, R-O-M-A-N-O-V, as Caesar. And the Romanov dynasty lasted until 1917. And this is when Lenin had the Romanov, Nicholas II, Nicholas Romanov, killed. But it lasted on. Romanov, that's a cool, Romanov. That'd be a good name for a vampire. Romanov. Romanov. Like the Ivans, the Romanovs, R-O-M-A-N-O-V-S, consolidated power. Remember, that's what you have to do to have an empire. You got to bring all these city-states together. And ruled ruthlessly. Peasants were practically slaves, but the empire expanded with the help of the Cossacks. Get a Cossack on your side. You're in good shape, you got a Cossack on your side. In 1682, Peter the Great became Tsar and ruled until 1725. Peter the Great does some stuff. Number 12, he was convinced he needed to westernize Russia. Westernize Russia. He looks over at Western Europe, sees all the cool stuff they're doing. They're making advances. They're learning from the Muslims through the Renaissance and Enlightenment. We'll get to that in a little bit. Learning all this stuff, and the Russians still banging their heads against the barn door. So Peter realized, man, Western, they've got it together. They got all these universities and stuff. We got nothing. So he realized for Russia to succeed, for Russia to compete, they have to westernize. He built Russia's first navy and founded St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg. And that becomes the capital of Russia, St. Petersburg. Number 13, St. Petersburg became the new capital. Told you! capital of Russia and was called the window to the, what direction? North, south, east, or west? Window to the west. Because they're opening up the window. Let the west come in. Let us learn from the west. It became home to hundreds of Western European engineers, scientists, architects, and artists who were recruited specifically to westernize Russia. Peter needed, hey, you Western college professors, come here, please. And they would come in. The whole goal, Peter realized, we have to westernize. We are behind the times. Number 14, women of nobility were forced to dress in Western fashions. Western fashion. And men were forced to shave their beards. No, very few Western men had beards. And Russia wants to be like the West. So the men shaves their beard. All the Russian women who had some money to buy clothes had to buy Western-looking clothes. What's the word for that? Clothes. Style. Fashion! Fashion is the word I'm looking for. Number 15. All right, Peter finally dies. Another Russian czar, or should I say czarina, because she's female, Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great. Ruled from 1762 to 1796. More Western culture was implemented. But Catherine continued to oppress the peasants and the growth of the middle class. Don't put your notes up yet. Don't start doing around. Let me explain this last one. Remember in Europe, the middle class, the merchants, start gaining all this influence, starting to be more elite than the royal blood of Europe. Well, Catherine didn't want that to happen in Russia. You know, the other stuff, yeah, I want to westernize all that other sort of stuff. But no, I don't want people being as cool as I am. So she kept the middle class down and the peasants also down, but did not want the middle class to rise because she saw what happened. All right, guys and gals, that is it. 4 land empires. Let's name them together. What was the first one? Manchu, the Qing. Mughal, India. Ottoman, Byzantine Empire, basically. Last one, Russian. Those are the 4 land empires you have to know and be able to compare and contrast with. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.